Wait. Oh,
Excellent start.
all right.
And we're live.
I just clipped so hard. Oh my God. What is happening? I'm clipping Audacity. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Ted White.
And I am Merritt Smith, and this is Dungeon Master Level 1. We're doing a new podcast based on the two of us and some other friends being brand new to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. I have played a tiny little bit, not anything significant, and I am DMing a brand new campaign, and Ted is playing in that campaign along with some other players. But Ted, as the only other person with a little bit of experience, is going to be sort of the assistant DM through this.
Much to my chagrin, by the way. I did not agree to this before we came into this, but here we are.
I shanghaied him.
Whoa! Oh, we're already canceled. We're not even 2 minutes in.
Is shanghaied
I would say
a canceled term?
The side of caution. I don't know.
I don't think it is, because it's not against the people who live in Shanghai. The phrase comes from you would get drunk in a tavern a pub in like Europe, in England, and then you would wake up.
Why would they call it Shanghai if it was in Europe?
No, because here's why. Because you would wake up on a sailing ship going to Shanghai.
Who are the people sailing that ship who are taking advantage of people?
The East India Trading Company.
Okay.
Or the British Navy. That recruited.
Hold on 1 second. What's up? No, I'm recording a podcast. That's my girlfriend Nadia. She says hello.
Hi, Nadia.
And she says hello to everybody listening to the podcast as well. That's a cookie for you. Just Ted and Merritt. Wow. Ouch. Okay.
No,
okay.
So, no,
we're gonna have to do some research. We're gonna do some research about this because this is problematic. But
if I am mistaken, I apologize. I believe the phrase would come is that a recruiter would get someone drunk, bring them to the docks, put them on a ship. They would get paid for bringing a new recruit, and the poor sod who got drunk with a stranger wakes up in the middle of the ocean on a ship with nowhere to go.
Sod? Just kidding.
That's offensive to dirt.
That's offensive to dirt. That's offensive to earthworms, pal. Okay, it's 2021. It's a different world we live in. Look, bottom line is, it's a lot of fun to play D&D with an old friend, and I am more than happy to help. It's been a unique challenge for me because something I'm trying to be super aware of is like what I as a player know going into the game needs to be separate from what my character knows. Sure, if that makes sense. I think they call that metagaming in the biz.
Absolutely. That is one of the hardest things I found in my previous brief experience of not bringing in my player knowledge into the character's knowledge. And it was at the point where the previous game I played in, she would often, the DM would often warn us about like, you can listen to this if you want to, but your character will not know that. And I would choose not to. I'd take my headphones off. Yeah. I'd wait for them to send me a text message that it was okay to come back, because I did have a hard time separating that.
Right.
But anyway, so we, for our listeners, are longtime friends in what may be like the strongest friendship based off of 1 week a year. In person ever.
Yes, we went to a get rich quick scheme that was disguised as a musical theater summer camp. We enriched our parents, wrote a lot of checks to sort of make sure that people who ran the camp were able to live their truth and subjugate their labor force. Really Beijinged them, if you will.
I think is offensive.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, now we're super.
Now we're canceled. We're
apologies to anybody if anybody.
We are 4 minutes and 37 seconds in and canceled.
Yes. So we are dear friends from summer camp.
Yep.
It was a 12-day camp that rented the space from
a real camp. From a legitimate camp.
Exactly. And what was really bizarre is that when we started going, this is something that I thought about a lot because I went there for a very long
Yeah,
time.
you went there even
My
longer.
first summer there
I was there for a
Mhm.
year or two before you, but you went for a couple of years after I stopped going because of
I would say
adulthood.
easily a decade and a half longer.
You kept going that
Yeah.
long.
I kept going, and when I was 29, I was like, okay, this is it. This is my last summer. And
Wow.
my first summer was when I was 13. So
Wow.
that was a lot of summers. But I saw all sides of the biz, saw had a lot of great time and a lot of times that weren't as great.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I'm glad it was good for me where I was at that time. I just kind of held on to it too long. That's what I think
Yeah.
really happened.
Yeah. And I could have totally seen myself holding on to it too long. I think it was like outside of like my physical house, it was the closest thing I had to like home. Um,
Right.
like school was not kind. Uh, um,
Yeah.
anyways,
Hello. Of course.
we're getting way off topic right away.
Look, no.
So
This is why people listen to podcasts. Yeah, there's a theme, but they like when people just
yeah,
completely go off
go off
topic all
topic.
the
Yeah,
time.
yeah. So yeah, we made a deep, long lasting friendship based off of a fraction of our lives together.
Mhm.
That has persisted the years. Like you said, you continued to go to that camp 10 years after I did,
Right.
and you're still one of my closest friends.
Hmm.
Um, and I
Back at you, babe.
and and I barely talk to you, but that's just because I barely talk to anybody.
Right. Same.
Out of the
You know
people
who
I talk to, this my wife says something similar that she says, out of all the people I know, I dislike you the least. And so like for you, out of all the people I talk to you the most, which is like
Oh.
for like
Oh
the
Lord.
3 text conversations and 1 phone call a year we've been doing.
Perfect. 10 out of 10. Just the perfect best friend I've ever
Perfect
had.
friendship.
Yep. You don't need anything. You live as far away from me as possible. Uh Excellent.
I have never
Um
once asked you to move.
no, never. Same. Back at you. Anyway, we're talking about D&D.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're here, we're starting a new campaign. I was over the moon when you asked me to be a part of this
Oh, that's nice.
because I had one instance, one brief, short-lived moment where I attempted to be a dungeon master, and I will tell you, it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I rapidly learned that everybody wants to play D&D, but nobody wants to be D&D.
Sure. Yep.
Everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants to like run the campaign and make it happen.
It's funny. It's
Um,
funny you mention that because honestly, now that I have stepped into being a dungeon master, I find the prospect of becoming a player almost boring because you are one character and I get to come up with and create a slew of characters and be all of them, and
right.
I have greatly enjoyed the prospect of creating all of these NPCs. Um,
Oh,
that
there's one NPC, baby. Oh,
you
baby,
mean
baby.
Ethel, the throwaway that's now going to be a central point in the campaign.
Oh my God. When you became Ethel, I was like, I don't know how we can get this involved for every game. Although here's the thing. Here's the risk we run with Ethel, is that it's like seasonings. You know, you don't want to put
Right. You don't want to do
too much
too much.
pepper on the
Right.
pasta. You know, you want like a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and when it makes sense, perfect. But if it's just like, oh, and here's Ethel again, it's gonna get old real quick.
I agree. I have a plan to keep her more involved, but not a central figure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Honestly, it was so much fun to just play again and also remember some of the, oh, I just clipped a little bit. I'm just going to say that again. It was so much fun to just play again. There we go. We're going to leave all this in. I don't know why
Oh
I'm
no, I'm
taking
not.
take this.
No, I'm not editing anything. This is going up raw from start to finish.
Perfect. This will be just like that podcast, Come Town, where they don't edit anything. They just upload and they're making $50,000 a month.
I'm not editing anything. For our audience listeners, all 5 of you for this first episode, I'm sure.
Our audience. Oh my god. All right.
I have two young children, so I do not have time for editing bullshit. It is record and publish.
So this is the kind of quality content you can
Yeah,
come to expect.
this is what.
See you next week, everybody. Bye. Like and subscribe. Oh my god, this is the worst podcast
Cut.
I've ever
End
heard.
right there.
No. We didn't even talk about D&D. No, sorry. Please continue.
No, that was my whole point. It's just that I have greatly enjoyed creating all of these characters, and like I've Ethel, for everybody listening, was working in the hero registration office. So the heroes arrived in the city of Oban and helped with a minor monster attack, and then were escorted to the hero registration office by the city guard to register themselves. And this was sort of a fantasy version of the DMV, and Ethel was your, typical clerical government employee with this very the very Ethel voice. I don't mean
very much. I would say heavily inspired by Roz from Monsters Inc.
That was exactly what I wrote down in my planning script.
What a such a great character.
Yeah.
And it's just like Banksy stole from Picasso, who stole from somebody else.
Yeah.
So there's like, the good artists borrow, but great artists steal.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. It is in my script notes for that session that Ethel should be like Roz from Monsters Inc. So she registered the heroes, and then they left the office. But a blossoming romance budded with the Goliath barbarian, and an
unrequited romance with the rock gnome.
Ethel has affections for, and then it's a little. We've already got a love triangle.
I know. It was so okay, so let's sort of like recap what happens thus far, right? That'll be a good structure for this podcast. So it started, we each had our own storyline. My character, Bosch of Amazon, season 6 premiering soon. So like and subscribe to Amazon Prime. Bosch of Amazon is a recluse monk who lives as a hermit. He stumbled across a village under attack. He showed off how good he is at martial arts, much like myself. I was heavily inspired by myself when I created this character. And then was zapped away by this electric storm into an unknown area. And then we met the other 4 characters. We had Lek, the bird person cleric, right?
Yes, yep, cleric. Although he doesn't have a name to put to it yet. But yeah, he's a cleric.
Gotcha.
Lek was captured after just being a hatchling, never grew up with his people, has been a slave and a subject of experimentation for 3 years, and just Aarakocra reached maturity at 3 years, and like as he reaches maturity, he
Aarakocra is the race of of Lek.
Yes, of bird people,
a bird person race. Yeah.
Yep. He reaches maturity, is given an opportunity to escape that he seizes upon, and is blessed by an unknown power that aids in his escape, but he doesn't really get that he's a cleric yet. He has these powers, but doesn't really have a name to put to it yet.
Right. And then we have Kofi. Who is a rockabilly
tiefling sorcerer.
Yeah. Right.
So he was just out on the road riding around, and his brother sent an agent to try and track him down and bring him back to take his place in the family business, where he has actually kind of been pushed out from any sort of managerial position. And he feels underappreciated and sort of put on a shelf. So he's left, but for unknown reasons, his brother badly wants him back, to the point of using force to bring him back.
Now, one thing I really thought was awesome about Kofi is that he is definitely he has a gun, he
Hmm.
rides a motorcycle, and he is just really cool.
Yeah,
And one thing I like so far about this campaign is that it's kind of like, hey, whatever, let's whatever you want, let's
right.
make it work.
Yep,
And
and
that's just the kind of campaign that we're running. So we're not running the strict
right,
by the book, this is high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings type
right.
stuff. No, no, no. There's like that element, but we're just here to have
And
fun.
for
Okay.
anyone who knows this, this world is highly inspired by Dimension 20's Fantasy High, which is a phenomenal podcast, videocast D&D game that the people at College Humor have been running. Or Dropout is their
Rest in peace.
yeah,
Rest in peace, College Humor.
yeah. So it's heavily inspired by that, where you can just be anything you want. You can mash it up. You want to use a sword, you want to use a gun, you want to use, nobody has a lightsaber, but we could figure out a way to do it if we wanted. And as we continue into this world, you will learn. I've thought of a mechanic for how that is possible, and
Love it.
it will make sense as you learn more.
I love it. Okay, and then our fourth character is, I forgot his name. It's like
Rokun,
Ramban or something.
Rokun,
Rokun, and he is a
Goliath barbarian.
Goliath. Now, is that like a giant class?
It
or
kind of
what?
it is. Goliaths are a race of mountain dwelling people, typically gray skinned with blue
Yeah.
not highlights, but they look like tattoos, but they're not. They're actually part of their body. It's part of their
Gotcha.
skin, like blue slashes. I don't think Steve knew that when he made his guy red, or that might just be blood that he put on the Hero Forge character. Either way, whatever. I'm not gonna, we'll roll with it.
Sure.
Maybe this one's red. Maybe that's part of his character, and he's special because of that. So part of their lore is that they may be descendant from giants. That I believe, and for anyone listening, please take note. I am by no means a lore expert. I have read as much as I felt like reading, and am going from there.
I skimmed the lore.
Yeah.
If you must know.
Yeah,
I had a brief cursory
Yep.
look. I read the Wikipedia, and you know what? If you're here to make bad comments,
Yeah, go away.
don't bother.
Don't
Okay,
bother.
we know that we're learning. That's why it's called level 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
I like
we are
opening with like being really defensive at people who
aggressively defensive.
I always assume that anything creative I do, and somebody is just gonna hate it and they're gonna tell me about
Right.
it. and then I'm
There's a
immediately just
million
kind of-
opinions out there. Somebody's going to hate it. If you don't like it, cool. Go find something you do like and stop wasting your time here.
I'm just gonna double down on that. If you don't like it, not cool, and don't tell us. We don't care.
Right.
Okay,
We do not care.
We're having fun. We
Right.
like it.
Right. And that is actually the motto for Dungeon Master Level 1. We're here for the fun.
We're just here to have fun.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So
great.
he is
Those are the 4 characters.
yeah, a little more about
Oh yeah, right.
Rokun's-
I was like, that's him.
So
He's a
that's
giant.
it.
That's
it.
Goodbye.
So he is a Goliath barbarian, but very apprehensive about his role, the role that he has been put in. He does not feel that his ferocity fits him. He fills his role. He is a young Goliath, only about 18, so still very much under the influence of his parents and his father, who is the chief, and he feels forced into violence that he doesn't necessarily want to commit, and that
He's a pacifist.
yeah, he's a pacifist. He would very much like to not commit these atrocities, but and that is where the source of his rage comes from. That it's not just a pure I'm fighting so I get angry and rage. He is angry at the situation. He is angry at his father. He is angry at himself. So I really liked what Steve came up with for that. Steve is the player playing Rokun, and I think
You know what? Sorry, please
Yeah.
finish this thought, and then I think we should go through and say who was playing
Right.
which
Yeah.
character.
And so I was just saying that there is a lot to work with going forward there, and I have some very interesting ideas for what we'll do to challenge that character.
Sick. I love that. Okay, so we have Steve who's
Steve
playing
Raccoon.
We have Isaiah, who's playing Kofi. We have Wright,
My brother.
who's playing Lek,
Yep.
who is Merritt's brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have myself, Ted, hello, who's playing Bosch of Amazon.
Yes.
Cool. So we met these 4 characters. They all got zapped away to an unforeseen location, and then we were all dropped into this market square of this unknown town. And before we could really get our bearings, another lightning storm happened, and 3 kobolds showed up, which are like low-level monsters for those of us who know D&D, but these would present enough of a challenge for our level 1 characters.
Yeah.
So this town that we're in kind of it seems like people just suddenly like appear periodically, but occasionally monsters appear. So they have a very large city guard. And when I say city guard, there's like a what's the word I'm looking for? The city guard of like medieval times. What was that called?
Yes.
The oh man,
I called it.
There's a word for it.
I think I
You
called
it the city guard, but there's an actual word.
Oh
for this.
yeah.
Oh man, people are just screaming at their podcast app right now. They're just like, I know what it is.
Right,
it's not cavalry.
Not cavalry.
It's not...
We'll do a quick Google. I have my computer.
All right, we're gonna Google it.
Go.
But anyway, so they have a very
let's
large.
Get a little elevator music while we wait. Do 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 do.
What is the word of the city guard? What is that word for the city guard? Better look
City
it
Watch,
up.
Town Guard.
City, no.
I know. I'm just seeing what the things that come on here. The
well,
first,
if you know, why did you read it, Merritt?
The first answer says that it's largely unpaid volunteers working for the local militia, but that is not the case here. This is a paid standing.
Right.
Force.
Anyway, look,
whatever.
I'm going to remember it when we stop.
Put it in the comments if you know the answer.
Yeah, throw it in the comments if you know what it is. Put it in those 5-star reviews.
Tell us what idiots we are and give us the answer.
And if you give us a 5-star review, maybe we'll read your review and we'll tell you how dumb you are for not knowing the word. Just kidding. We would love any review. Anyway, okay. So so monsters show up here all the time.
Yep.
Our group, who does not know each other, dispatches the kobolds, and then we're like, cool, we did it, and then suddenly a giant minotaur shows up, and the city guard then shows up to,
and all the characters are level 1. That they're starting at level 1. So this is clearly more than 4 people who just had a fight and are low level would be able to handle.
Right, exactly. We would not be able to handle the minotaur. So we're our characters are like, uh-oh, and then the city guard shows up to take care of the minotaur, while the head of the city guard then takes us to the registration area of heroes, but gives us the option to either like go to the dungeon or
the law is all new heroes must be registered. Yeah.
Right. Just like in California, when you bring your new car here, you have to register it, or else they will do nothing and then charge you hundreds of dollars if you tell them the truth when you do finally go register.
Are you
or you
speaking
can
from are you speaking from experience there, Ted?
A little bit, but here's the funny thing about that is that so when you move to California with your car, you have to go do what's called a smog check.
Yep.
And then the person who did the smog check for my car was like, how long have you had the car here? And I was like, honestly, 6 months. And he was like, did you get any tickets? And I said, no, because guess what, folks? I'm a safe driver.
I'm a good driver.
So I'm driving around. I'm using my turn signal. I'm keeping it under the speed limit. I'm stopping at red lights, and I'm going at the greens all day. So I'm at the smog place, and he says, well, guess what? Tell them that you've only had it here for a week, because if you tell them the truth, they're going to charge you like a specific fee, which I think is something like $10 to $20 a day.
Holy
so that dude
shit.
at the smog place that I paid $50 to ended up saving me $450 when I went to register my car.
Wow.
And that smog place, it got torn down, baby. Some say, some say late at night they can still see that smog man giving people good
Ted,
advice at the smog place.
there was never a smog place there to begin with.
Anyway, so that's another of our patented Ted and Merritt segues to nothing. Let's get back to the D&D, folks.
Segue to nothing.
That's you know what though, that's just a good tip.
Yeah.
Somebody out there is going to listen to this and say, you know
Good
what,
tip.
I'm going to move to California.
Good tip. Lied to the state of California.
Yes, just another one of Ted's tips. Lie. It doesn't matter. The people pushing that paper don't care. They just are there to punch a time card. Anyway, so we have to register with the City Hero Department where we meet the incomparable
Ethel Longbottom. No, not Long. I said Leaf Bottom.
What?
Ethel Leaf Bottom. Longbottom is the kid from Harry Potter. I kind of smushed the two together and I said Longbottom. Ethel Leaf Bottom. Who now has a not fully but more fleshed out backstory and
exactly
is now going to be a more central figure.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we meet them, we all register. My character notices that she's reading like a romance novel on a scroll, and I'm like, nice. I was kind of doing this as a bit, as a player, just like, I think it'd be funny if my character, like this 3-foot tall gnome, is just like, sup, baby? Yo, baby, what's up? Let me buy you dinner. And she was not interested at all. But she sees Raccoon, the strong silent type.
The 8-foot tall Goliath.
The reluctant warrior who chooses a life of peace. And she's like,
that's my
baby,
that's my stuff. That's my stuff.
That's my stuff. Sure, I may be 60 something. I don't know. She may be an elderly woman, but you know what? She can still get down, and she is ready to get down.
Yeah.
With Raccoon.
Yeah.
Raccoon. I'm gonna call him Raccoon for the rest of the day. He wears a mask. Anyway. So all that happens. We register. Somebody, I think, rolled a perception check and got like a 7, and you said very delightfully, just, you see a room that's really nice. Which I'm wondering might have been signaling me. If I was feeling more thorough, I would have been like, maybe I should roll a perception check. But then I was like, nah, screw it.
I'll let you. You know, I feel like I can let you in. There was nothing special about that. It is literally a government office.
I had a feeling. But that's the other thing that you forget. That I am remembering about D&D is that perception checks are important, but it's also important to remember what skills your player has because you should use the skills, and it's not always about like fighting and stuff like that. Like Bosch's strength is very low. All of his other skills are pretty well rounded and pretty above average. I tried to like leverage it to be more well rounded than like have 20 dexterity or something like that. Yeah. Because I still get like pretty solid modifiers, but I was just kind of like, okay, I know he's not going to be strong, but I'm like, it'd be cool if he was like really wise and like really good at like reading people because he is a gnome. So that's kind of like what I was thinking. Yeah. Anyway, there's a little insight into my character creation process.
And actually, that brought up a point that it was something I forgot to do in the game. Learning moment for me as a dungeon master. During Bosch's introduction, I mentioned that he barely escaped a fight with some sort of magical necromancer, and that he got hit with a spell that like dug into him, creating poison. And in your character creation, because you rolled ridiculously well, we talked about nerfing Bosch. That spell, I forgot to mention this. I meant to do it then, but it got caught away with like helping everyone learn how to do the combat because we went right into that combat encounter.
Right.
That spell is going to put a permanent modifier on your dexterity and constitution to knock it down a little bit. I think maybe just 1 point into dexterity and 2 into constitution. Just because it will become part of your character's quest line that you have now been poisoned.
Right.
And because part of what your character's description was is Bosch is most concerned about creating a mind, body, spirit balance and having those in harmony. And now your body has been tainted, and that is unobtainable.
Right.
Until your quest line is resolved.
Okay. So, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know I rolled really high. Also, the other thing that I'm remembering is like the passive things that
Hmm.
you have to like think of as well. Like if you have a character like if one of your characters is going in somewhere, you have to kind of be like, oh, there is something hidden here, but they have like a passive like perception of
Yeah.
like this, so they can like notice things without actively
Yeah.
rolling that roll.
Yeah.
There's so many layers to being a DM. It's kind of
There's
nuts.
there's a ton of layers. I also am, I'm trying to keep it simple, um, and stuff like that. And I'm trying to eliminate, this is obviously a homebrew game, and I'm eliminating some things from the campaign and from the game, the way it's played, that I just never thought made a ton of sense. And one example that you mentioned, like passive perception, and one of the things, and this was actually brought up by Brendan Lee Mulligan from Dimension 20, is that he always thought that like traps didn't make a lot of sense because, in tombs, maybe in tombs, but like in places people would have lived in like a goblin camp, they wouldn't have just traps all over the place. Like even if they knew
Oh
they
yeah,
was there, they would stumble into them occasionally and they'd be a huge
yeah.
pain in the ass. Um,
Huge liability for
yeah.
the
Yeah.
goblin bureaucracy.
So maybe somewhere in like a tomb where a trap would have been used to protect something that no one was ever going to go again, a trap would make sense. But just like out about in the world in a place that's lived in, they do not. So like I'm not going
Right.
to worry too much about those things. I'm not going to worry too much about sort of like passive things because we're all new. We're all learning it still. There's a ton
Right.
of rules to remember for both players and DMs, and so I'm more interested in telling a cool story than abiding by the rules by the book. Like I want this to be a role playing character driven experience first, and then sort of a dungeon uh, battle simulator second.
Yeah. Awesome. And
Okay,
that's what
so
the other thing about like the game too is that it really just does like I'm talking here. Excuse me. That's the other thing about I'm gonna make this point, then we can move on, okay?
okay, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's the other thing about running your own campaign and like character creation is that it's such a good tool for writing. So if you're ever thinking like, oh, I want to write something, it's good practice to work on story and also just being able to think on your feet because a lot of times players will do something that you're like, whoops, didn't plan that. Okay, yep, that's what's happening. Anyway, please continue.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, so after submitting your information to Ethel at the registration office, she starts shuffling papers
Hmm.
and looks at each one a little bit closer and notices something that she has not disclosed to you, the players, the characters. And she leaves, asks you to wait, and comes back with the captain of the guard again, who asks you to follow him to prepare for an audience with the king. And
Yes.
so the players, some blindly, willingly, some a little more hesitantly, follow.
Excuse me. Yeah, look, my character saw all the guards and thought, you know what? It's not worth an argument.
Right.
Okay?
No,
Sometimes you just have to do what they tell you
that
and just move on.
I will be honest. That is why I made the guards an overwhelming force to get the players to do what I want at the very beginning.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
so that the characters followed the guard through the city up to the castle and into a staging room where they've been asked to disarm because they will not be allowed to carry weapons in to see the king. Some asked questions about that, some objected, but ultimately they all acquiesced, and that's where we ended the session because that took about an hour 45
2
minutes.
hours. It took us 2 hours.
It took us
to
two
that point.
hours.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there was a fair amount in there. We were learning the rules of combat,
Right.
because no one else has ever played before as well.
Mhm.
And there was a good amount of character play because each of the characters got a 5 to 10 minute introduction that they
Right.
got to role play out. And I actually have two funny stories about that. I feel like I committed a DM sin by
Uh-oh.
telling I don't know if you remember when Wright started he's like, oh, Lek is just going about his day flying around. And I was like, no, that's not what we talked about. Like,
Oh yeah.
because D&D is improv. The rule
Right.
is yes and, you know that.
Yes.
Yes and. So
Yes, I do.
To tell
so
him
when you start every campaign, you come out and you say, "Give me a suggestion of anything at all."
yeah,
And then you do what's called a pattern game.
Yeah.
With your players. This. Oh God, I hate myself. Never mind. Please continue.
Right.
So yeah. So Wright was like, "I'm flying around," and you were like, "No, you're not."
No, you're not.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, you're right.
That's right.
I'm not."
Well, to be fair, it is. We had discussed this in detail. And I said, I would like to start. He was like, this is what I want the backstory to be. And I said, I think it creates a really good storytelling opportunity to actually start Lek there at the beginning of his heroic adventure before he is empowered, before he has escaped. Because he wrote the slavery idea. That was entirely him.
Yeah.
And so I said, I want to start Lek there because I think that would create a really good narrative chain, and I'll be able to work in things from that for your character's progression. So when he like completely forgot that, I was like, fine, but I'm going to have to do this and be like, no, that's not what we talked about. We're going to do what I want. So I felt a little bit bad about that, but also he just straight up forgot what we talked about.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a DM sin. I would say that he just forgot what you were talking about.
Yeah. So
and this isn't like so much like improv where it's like, no, you can't like tell people it's wrong. Like it's still your campaign.
It's like improv with a script a little bit, you know. It's like I did have that sort of thing prepared. And I even actually had combat encounters with maps planned out for you and him. But then, little peek behind the scenes, Steve and Isaiah took longer to get me their stuff, and I didn't have time to plan something for them. And so I decided to just narrate the start of them all.
Honestly, that's fine. You know, you need to be efficient to get everybody together.
To be efficient, to be fair.
Another little writing hack, another TED tip.
Just cut.
If you're writing something, if you're writing a TV show or a script, you want to get that inciting incident out in the first 10 pages, baby.
Yep.
Otherwise, it's like, what are we doing?
So
it's like we know that they're going to end up together, so let's just get them together as quickly and elegantly as possible.
But I feel that Wright's that misstep with Lek was balanced out by adjusting to what Isaiah and his tiefling greaser on his motorcycle did, because I was expecting a scenario where he actually had a conversation with his father and his brother about getting pushed out of the business that he, was in. So like when he started narrating his character and said, I'm all on my own, I have no family anymore, I was like, oh, well, there goes that idea. So his introduction, I had to come up with that agent trying to bring him back on the spot. And it may not have been the most fleshed out idea for it, but I think it worked well enough. It established the motivations for him and for his foil for his character arc.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, we had no idea what was supposed to happen. So
right. And again, like we said many times, and we'll say many times again, completely new players. Particularly because you and I have a lot of acting experience. We have a lot of
no, I wouldn't say I'm like
hey, you had that Washington D.C. lottery commercial.
I had a bunch of commercials. I had a New Jersey lottery commercial. I had an AARP commercial.
I think I saw that one too.
A small internet service provider commercial that ran for a while. Doesn't matter. Long story short, acting is bullshit. Please continue.
Acting is bullshit, and any dum-dum can do it.
Most of it is like, hey, what do you look like? Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah, that looks good.
Can they act? Yeah.
Yeah, well
Pretty
enough.
Good. Yeah, they can sell stuff, right? Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
sorry.
but
Let's move.
but
I'm sorry to be this guy.
no,
Let's move this along.
yeah,
I'm
we'll
running
move
out of battery.
So Wright has a little bit. You and I did high school, college acting. I don't think Isaiah has any. I don't think he has any acting. He doesn't have any improv. I'm not sure he has like any creative writing. He works in academics, in student recruitment. So,
Nice.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I love the thing I also just love about like our crew is that it's such varying like backgrounds.
yeah.
And I'm really excited to see what happens next.
Mm-hmm.
When it was over, I was sad. I was like, oh
Yeah.
man, I wanted to keep going.
Yeah. Well, it had been 2 hours. It was 11 o'clock Eastern, and
That's true.
that's where 3 of us are. So we had to wrap it up.
Yeah. I had to, and I have like, I just started a new job this week, so I'm like actively like working that 9 to 5 grind.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
My Mac will sleep soon unless plugged into a power outlet.
So go grab your
Final thoughts?
plug. I'm not done.
I don't have space. I don't have space.
What do you mean you don't have? Do you don't have a space for a plug? How do you not have space for a plug? It's like this big coming out of the computer, and then you need an outlet.
Plug, but I also
I have a space for
the
a plug
outlet.
right
Look, it doesn't
here.
matter. We have like, look, I have like 5 minutes. Let's take. Can we do? It's 5 more minutes.
I had
also
so
have
many more things I wanted to
food.
talk about.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
How do
Save it
you
for next week.
How do you not just have your computer plugged in? What kind of savage are you?
Well, I have a separate computer for work, and this is my personal device.
all
And
right.
when I'm running Discord and Audacity and running into a
That does
USB
drain.
mic,
It does drain your
the
battery a fair amount. Yeah, that's fair.
Apparently, my
That's fair.
good looks are really hard on this MacBook Pro battery.
All right. So let's go to like conclusions. What was like your favorite thing about the game? What do you have any suggestions for me as the DM for things to improve?
I think okay. I'm gonna start with what I loved. I loved Ethel.
Yeah.
I love I love really sharp, specific characters. So if it doesn't have to be Ethel every week, but if it's like if you have like specific weird characters that show up periodically, people would like. I want to like. I want to like see these characters as like real.
Yeah.
People with like neuroses.
I
and, like,
have a
hopes and
whole
dreams.
crew in store that I don't think you'll get to next week, but you certainly will the following week.
Okay, great. I love that.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is that I would say don't be so hard on yourself about stuff that you have to like throw in out the gate, or if you have to like say no to players. I think that's totally your right as DM to. I might push the boundaries, and I know that you'll be like, no, you can't do that, and I'll be fine with it. Because...
Well, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna say. I think, again, drawing inspiration from Dimension 20. I'm going to try not to say low, but I may set a ridiculously high challenge for that. Like you may have to roll a 19 or a 20 for what you're doing to succeed. So I have learned there is a difficulty challenge scale, and I don't remember it offhand, but like basically like 10 and
20 is like almost impossible that you would do it.
10 and under, you fail. 10 to 15, you have mild success. 15 to 19, you have fair success. 20, you have great success, but then you work in modifiers, and you can get your score up to 30 depending on your modifier, and like bonuses, bardic inspiration, any sort of that. And 30 is like, if you can hit a 30, that's like something that's basically impossible. You have broken the rules if you roll a 30. And so if you try and do something crazy, I may not set it at a 30 DC, or difficulty challenge. I said that for you. Hopefully our listeners will probably know what a DC is.
Are you talking about District of Columbia?
But
no, sorry, that's the worst thing I've ever said. And you're the one who said Shanghai, folks. All right.
Jesus, bring it back. We will. When we get done, I'm going to look up whether that's offensive or not, and then
and
immediately
we'll put it in the episode description.
And so so I want crazy ideas and experimentation, but if it's really out there, it may not be possible based on your your difficulty challenge rolls.
Okay, that's totally fair. Anything I could have done differently as a player?
No, I think I was so pleased with how everyone did as a player, with you and all the other, except for Wright being like, "I'm doing this." It's like that's not what we talked about. Um,
And you were like, right?
right.
That's wrong.
That's wrong. You're an
And then you
idiot.
put on your. And he's like, that's not right. That's wrong. And then you put on your sunglasses, and we all cheered.
and the Who song from CSI Miami screams out, "Yeah!" All right.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I was very happy with how everything went. I
Oh, yeah.
was ecstatic. I also wanted to keep going, but it felt like we were at a natural stopping point. I thought,
Yeah. Then that's perfect. And I think that's great.
the next, and I wanted something big for everybody to look forward to next time. And I think the role play we would have done, meeting the king, would have taken a little while. Longer than I think people wanted. At least I know Wright and probably Isaiah wanted to stay up. So yeah, but I thought it couldn't have gone better. I was very, very happy with it.
I agree. Great stuff, man. I'm excited for next week. I'm gonna be there playing. And
Awesome.
we'll
Awesome.
see everyone here next
Right here.
time.
Next time on Dungeon Master Level 1. We're here for the fun. Bye.
I'm Ted White.
And I'm Merritt Smith. Have a good one,
Good.
everybody.
Goodbye. We're working on the outro. Okay, bye.